Welcome to My New BFF. I'm Codie Elaine Oliver, co-creator of Black Love, and I'm joined here today by someone that I have really wanted to sit down with for a while. She's a mother of three, like me, and her oldest, Noah, is 3 years old, and she's a fellow twin mom to Sky and Jordan, who are 2. My twins are also 2. Actually, I think they're about a week apart. And a licensed marriage and family therapist, CEO, entrepreneur, and wife to NBA star Russell Westbrook. So please welcome, hopefully my new BFF, Nina Westbrook. Rah, rah.
Yay. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So first, I have to, as I mentioned earlier, geek out with my mommy fix. I just remember seeing you probably pregnant on social with twins and seeing your older son. And I was like, we were on the same path. I mean, I had a 2-year-old when you had a 1-year-old, and we were both having twins. When were your girls born?
The girls were born November 17th.
Mine were born November 12th, my boys.
Wow.
I know. It's crazy.
That's pretty crazy. Yeah.
I don't know if that's what started it all, but learning little by little things about you and having been a basketball star myself in high school, feeling like one day I could have, like, Nina Westbrook is me. I am her. She is me. But I wanted to first ask you a question that I ask everyone. It's really important to me. Who has taught you the most about love? It can be anyone. It can be good or bad. But who in your life has taught you the most about love?
So first off, I want to say that I think that it is insane how much we have in common. And I know you guys can't see us right now, but we actually have the same bun and color sweatshirt on.
Yep.
Just so you know. I don't know what's going on, but it's pretty crazy.
Dare I say twinning?
Twinning. You literally. Oh
Right.
my goodness. Okay. So who has taught me the most about love? I don't know. I feel like my parents probably, especially my dad. I was the only girl. I had 3 brothers. And so I got all the loving growing up. My dad and my brothers were very attentive and caring and loving towards me. They always made sure that they were encouraging me and lifting me up and telling me how amazing and great I am. And
I love it.
I would always tell them, Dad, you have to stop. This is too much. No, I'm not going to be Tiger Woods. No, like, you're just calm down a little bit. So that's the kind of dad that I had. He was just very much so in love with his children, and he definitely showed that.
So dad and 3 brothers, you said?
I have 3 brothers.
So there was nobody was going to treat you wrong.
No, I mean, and then also I learned so much because I obviously had a lot of men around all the time. So I kind of got the lay of the land early as it pertains to how men act and how guys behave. So that turned out good for me, I think, and as I grew older and started dating.
You, as I mentioned, you played basketball, of course, in high school and then in college at UCLA. And we chatted a little bit earlier about the fact that, I kind of wish I had played in college. Some may argue that was, so I went to private school, but we were very competitive and played all the public schools. So I thought we were pretty good. And it was just frankly one of my favorite, I actually did volleyball, basketball, and track. So it was one of my favorite sports. And I tore my ACL my senior year of high school. So for me, that's why it just kind of ended there. But for you kind of fulfilled one of my dreams. What was that like for you? Did you have any sort of college experience, or was it focused on sports?
Okay, so I think I'm naturally an introvert. So college I was not as social as I would have liked to be in college. I met my now husband basically as soon as I got there. And so I was kind of booed up the whole time. And I went to parties sometimes. But playing sports was amazing. I mean, I had a really good time. I did deal with a lot of injuries. I had a couple of labrum tears, which I had to have surgery on. So there was a lot of recovery and rehab involved.
Yeah, I get it.
it was a lot different than high school. You probably got out right on time, right before all of the like intensity
Yeah.
was there, and it has a tendency to kind of take some of that like innocent fun out of it that we love when we're playing in high school or in like club teams. So
Mhm. Mhm.
um, I learned a lot. I made a lot of friends, and it was a good experience overall.
Yeah. And so when you were there, did you study therapy? Like, was that your plan to be a marriage and family therapist while you were in college?
It was my plan, but I did actually really enjoy writing as
Mhm.
well, and dare I say it, reading. So I majored in English because of sports. Like you mentioned earlier, a lot of my time was wrapped up in practice, rehab, weightlifting, traveling, and then tutoring. I loved tutoring.
Wow.
It was mandatory for us, but at the same time, I was a bit like, I welcomed the free support.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would study and read, and I studied English, and I did like my prerequisites for my master's program in psychology, because the
Mm.
psychology program at UCLA, most of the classes were during my actual training hours, which was a bummer.
Mhm. So ultimately, you finish your master's at UCLA as well?
No, so I finished my prerequisites. I got my master's from Chicago School of Professional Psychology
Got it.
after I graduated from UCLA. And it was a really amazing experience, and I met a lot of really cool people,
Yeah.
and I felt very prepared afterwards, so that was really good.
So I would like to sort of catch up to you now are doing all of these things, which,
Mhm.
presumably, you're living in your career that you've wanted since college. You're married to
Mhm.
your college sweetheart with three beautiful babies. You have started several businesses since. How did you stay focused on those things, as well as, of course, the moves required with, your husband being, an NBA player and birthing these babies? Did you have to make sacrifices? What did that look like for you?
Oh my goodness. I feel like my whole life has been like a sacrifice, so in a way.
Yeah.
It's just challenging. I think that being adaptable is one of the my biggest strengths. Even my husband and I, like going into like life in general after college, we discussed the fact that we don't really know what that's going to look like.
Yeah. Yeah.
We both are big dreamers. I'm a big dreamer. I have lots of ambition and goals and things that I'd like to achieve in my life. And so I knew that being creative and trying to figure out a way and a path that best fits me
Mhm.
was going to be a huge part of my journey.
Mhm.
And so I think committing to that at the very beginning, before even going into it, is like I'm going for it, and whatever happens, I'm gonna adapt and make it work and make it
Yeah.
happen. It doesn't matter how long it takes. It has helped me to kind of just take things as they come and still continue to follow my dreams and my passions
Mhm.
despite the obstacles.
Are you a planner? Would you say that you're like one of those people who's like, I'm going to do this by this age? I'm going to do this, Are you that person?
I used to be.
Mm.
I used to be a planner, but because of my lifestyle, moving, my husband's career, I've had to completely abandon that idea that things are just going to go according to plan all of
Mhm.
the time.
Yeah.
I I like live by this idea of organized chaos. Especially when I'm raising my kids, because for them, we're moving from place to place, which is normal. That's
Yeah.
normal for a lot of people. Maybe they have family or parents in the military,
Yeah.
or whose parents also move for work. So they're growing up in a really unorthodox way. And so trying to create a stable home and stable foundation that looks the same no matter where we are,
Right.
it feels the same, has been my new focus in life, rather than planning and being, so tied to that idea of
Yeah.
normalcy and planning and that type of thing, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Is there a moment or a year or anything that you remember that like that hit you that like, okay, I have to let go of the thought that I can plan, I have to be flexible
Yes, flexibility. Oh my goodness, that is huge for me because, like I said, I used to be a planner.
because I'm still struggling.
Yeah, I used to be a planner. Everything needed to be just so, but I felt like it was causing so much
Mhm.
tension and stress in my life when things
Mhm.
were not going according to plan. It caused several like misunderstandings, miscommunications, even in my relationships with friends, family, my husband, and everybody's like, he actually told me this one time. And then I think from that moment on, I was like, huh, you're right. Let me, which never happens. He's never right. Um,
They're not.
so
Never.
no. So I was like, he was like, listen, you keep trying to tell me that you want to do this, this, and that, and you want the kids to do this, this, and that, but your gauge and everything that you're making these ideas and expectations on, or expectations about, is based off of a normal
Mhm.
life, quote unquote,
Mhm.
normal life. And I'm like, huh, you're right. And that's why I'm not being able to accomplish these things, is because that's just not the life that I live. I think
Yeah.
he's the one who helped open my eyes to the idea that I had to kind of be like a focus more on a moving target and be okay
Yeah.
with that
Yeah.
rather than the latter.
That's so funny to me because I hear it and I get it 100%. And very specifically, as in, NBA family, that is not a normal life, right? And then I apply to myself as well, right? We're in film and television business, both of us. That is not a normal life.
Hmm.
And my critique of myself is I've been saying for probably 15 years, when things slow down, I'm going to do X. When things slow down, I mean, I heard myself one day and I was like, oh my God, I've been saying this for a long time, but also thinking about normalcy from the standpoint of most of us. Now, granted, let's just say most of the people I know, and that's film, TV, advertising, et cetera, like all kinds of professions. But most of us aren't working in whatever our parents were working in. And so,
Hmm.
normal to a certain extent, we don't even know what that means. Like, sure, NBA, we can all agree is different. Film and TV, we can all agree is a different kind of different. But many of us are judging ourselves against either how we grew up or what we saw on TV. Like, normal doesn't really exist. We have this imagination of like, we're going to do this at 6 p.m. and then we're going to have dinner at this time and we're going to put them to bed. And then we have to like recreate that and redefine that within our own homes. And I hear you saying it, and I'm still saying it again to put it in my head because it has not sunk in. I have not had the, I hear you, but I
Right.
haven't made the adjustment. Let me put it that way. I haven't made the
Yes,
adjustment.
that's exactly it. I mean, how many times I've quoted something that said, "There's no such thing as normal," right? What is normal, anyways? Um, and I'm like, yeah, this is true because every
Yeah.
single person is going to live a different life, and their situation is going to feel normal to them. Um, but really, it's subjective what normal is.
And giving credit to husbands, you quoted yours. Mine says when people ask us about Black love and like how much we've learned since interviewing all these couples, I'm like, he says, now I say, that we've learned so much and it's given us so many tools and tips and tricks to have a better relationship, to communicate better, to avoid pitfalls. But it's not the same as committing it to muscle memory, right? Like I
Hmm.
might know the answers, but that's not the
Hmm.
same as like doing it and getting it right. So that's the practice. That's the struggle, probably of
Yeah,
life.
I'm laughing because I'm a marriage and family therapist, so I'm not perfect, but I can definitely tell somebody else what I think that they can possibly be doing to make things a little bit more easy for them.
Yeah.
But I don't always practice what I preach. It's hard when you're in it,
Yeah.
and it's just hard to remove yourself from the situation and your own emotions and everything that's wrapped up in it and
Mhm.
see it from an outside perspective. So that's why it's good to have good husbands that will help us remind us of these things,
Every
right?
once in a while, yes, they say something useful. Um, so that's another place where we are well, where you did something that I wanted to do. But again, I'm totally happy. Like in some ways, I've gone down this path of marriage and family therapy by doing a show about marriage. But you know, that was the first choice for me was studying psychology. I didn't because I was like, well, I need to go to business school because I need to, my parents were entrepreneurs. And so I need to like understand business and yeah. So I didn't. Then I studied
Hmm.
journalism. But anyway, but it's always been a fascination of mine, clearly.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so now I'm really curious. I remember reading that about you somewhere when I was learning all of these random details and was like, wow, she's amazing. Um, but how do you do it? Like, what does that literally look like? How many hours a day do you spend talking to clients, patients, whatever you call them, versus parenting and wifing and running these other businesses? How is your life structured?
Okay. So, I mean, I will try to give you like a quick rundown of what that looked like and how it came to be.
Yeah.
So, I got my master's in clinical psychology with a specialization in marriage and family therapy. The licensing process should take about 2 years. It took me about 6 years,
Hmm. Why?
just
Why? What was
because
happening?
while I was moving from place to place, when you are working as a therapist, it's difficult because you have to be there for your clients. When
Yeah.
I first started out, there was no or e-therapy. There was none
Yeah.
of that. Like we actually were taught like this is not a safe and secure way to do therapy when I was in school. So that's a whole different
Wow.
thing now. And that we rely on that like so much now. But when I was practicing, I was in school, I was working in community centers. I've worked inpatient with children. I've worked in adolescents and then I've worked in outpatient with children and adolescents, different families and community centers, and it just took a lot of time to get through the
Yeah.
licensure process. You have
Yeah.
to have so many hours of supervised experience and moving back and forth. I would be working for 5 or 6 months and then not working for 5 or 6 months. And it's like back and forth, back and forth. And that's why my journey took a little bit longer, but I was determined. And I always feel like, even if it's a slow crawl, progress is progress.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So then I had my son and I was going to work and I was extremely miserable.
Where were you at this point? What city?
I was in Oklahoma and I
Okay.
was working at a VOTEC called Francis Tuttle. They had a alternatives high school on campus called Project Hope, which actually was a really cool school. And I was working there as the school therapist. And I would like come to work, and that's another thing a lot of people don't know about me. It wasn't until I started opening my businesses that I stopped actually seeing clients.
Gotcha.
And so I would go to work and I would just be sad. I got pregnant eventually with my son Noah.
Hmm.
And then I would just be sad leaving him at home. And so then I stuck it out for the year. I went back the next year. I got pregnant with the girls, which was really challenging, that pregnancy. I'm sure you probably know it was
Yeah.
probably the hardest thing ever in my life that I had to deal with.
But and also to be clear, it was 1 year after you had your son, right? That you were
It
pregnant
was
again.
I think so, yeah,
Or
because
like
he was.
maybe
Listen, I think back and I'm like, what the heck happened? Like, I can't even believe my baby was a baby when my babies were born.
yeah,
It was
girl.
insane. It was not a smart move. So anyhow, um, like I was going to work and I was just sick and I was tired and I was like, okay, I have to figure something else out because I don't want to just sit. I always want to be learning and
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
experiencing new things and growing. And so I decided to go your route into like the more entrepreneurship avenue and
Mhm.
lane and try to figure out and connect with my my passion for retail, my passion for bringing families together. And that's when I opened the Little Art.
Love that.
I don't even remember what you asked me anymore, but that was a long
We'll get
story.
there. It's the trajectory. This is you're catching us up. So the Little
Okay.
Ark is a store for kids. Is it clothes only? Is it accessories and things too?
So the Little Ark is it's a lifestyle boutique, but we have a back room where we do mommy and me classes, milk
Love it.
bars. We partnered with local women's hospitals, and they come in and bring doctors to answer questions, and host weekly milk bars, and we do CPR and first aid certifications and
Love it.
all of that type of thing. Now we haven't been able to do that since COVID, but I can't wait to get back to providing that
Hmm.
community aspect I wanted to bring to the Little Arc, since I was going to be missing it and not seeing clients.
I have lots of questions about virtual opportunities there, but we can do that another day. So you stopped seeing clients, opened this business, and then what? Because then at some point you guys moved to LA.
And then we were traded
Hmm.
to Houston,
Oh,
which the Little Arc is still very much so up and
yep.
doing really well. And I just love it there. I built everything exactly the way I love. It's really sad that I don't get to go there every day anymore. We moved to Houston, and before that, though, we were in LA, and I decided for a year I was thinking about starting a kids clothing brand.
Hmm.
And so it just happened to be that I was no longer in Oklahoma, where I was having to spend as much time at the store. And so I was like, well, let me pursue this situation.
Yeah.
So I did that. COVID happened. It was completely chaotic and such
Yeah.
a challenge trying to produce clothes
Right.
and do anything at that time. But somehow we were able to launch. And I also, during that process, really wanted to connect back to my mental health background
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
figure out a way that made sense for me to be of service in that way without actually having to see clients face to face.
Yeah.
And that's when I started minawestbrook.com, where it's just a place that serves as a resource for information.
Hmm.
We have different guest writers come on and share their take on whether it be mental, physical, or community health.
Love it. So Mini Brook, which is the kids' clothing line, right? And there's also
Mhm.
lunch boxes and things, right?
Yes, we did a
Okay.
collaboration with Simple Modern, who makes lunch bells and water bottles.
So that is what you were working on, let's say into 2019, 2020, pandemic hits and it slows things down, but you still launched it.
Yes. I had been working on Mini Brook before the pandemic. I
Hmm.
mean, I was in sampling process and getting samples back and everything before the actual, like probably a
Yeah.
year prior
Okay.
to the
Okay.
pandemic happening.
Yeah.
And then we were in production during the pandemic, which is what really slowed us down,
Hmm.
because it's produced in LA, and all of the factories were closed down for months. And even when they came back, people would get COVID and they would have to shut back
Oof.
down.
Oof. That part.
The Yeah, and everybody's operating on low, with low numbers. And so it's just been all the regulations. It's been a
Yeah.
challenge, but yeah, we were able to get it done. It
Yeah.
wasn't on time like it was supposed to, like the planning aspect, but I'm used to things not going according
Yeah.
to plan.
So do you feel like you now handle those pivots pretty well, or did that hurt? Like I can only imagine, you're ready to launch something or, and this year did a number on all of
No,
us.
I
No?
mean, you know,
Hmm.
I have so much stuff going on at my house on a daily. If I were to get upset over, I can't get upset over
Anything.
everything.
Yeah.
No, I don't get upset over any. The only time I get really upset is if one of my kids gets like very hurt.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, then
Yeah.
I'm upset. But aside from that, I just try to take everything with a grain of salt and just work with what I'm given.
You know what I just realized is a twin mom lesson that is like a life lesson.
What is that?
So, we have twins, all of us, and we have an older child who's not much older. And one of my first lessons, the first week or two, was someone's always crying. Like no matter what I do, no how if you have one baby, you can snuggle them. You can snuggle them and the crying stops or whatever. You can feed them, you can do the things. When you have two, someone's going to cry and you can't do anything about it. And that just
Hmm.
has to be okay. And that was a big lesson for me that I took to pretty quickly. I don't know about you, but for me, like it hurt at first. It was like, oh, I'm holding this baby, but the other baby's right there crying. But
Hmm.
I quickly just realized, like, it's okay. He's going to cry and I'll get over there when I get over there. And that
Hmm.
reminds me of your your launch. It's like the production is whatever it is right now. It's not happy and it'll be okay.
It's going to be okay. And, you know, and that's a perfect analogy. I think that there's so much that's going on right now for my own mental health purposes. I have to choose to be okay with things not going accordingly like that.
Yeah, yeah. And I need to do better at it. So this is a good conversation. So what would you say what is a sacrifice because you've made a lot of them, but what would you say was the hardest for you to wrap your head around to I don't know, but what of all of these twists and turns has been the biggest challenge for you?
I think that just sacrificing my passions and the things that I've always sought out to do to kind of take a back burner to the needs of our family. I think
Mhm.
that was probably the biggest sacrifice for me. And then obviously now as a mom, I probably sacrifice everything. And that's just kind
Every
of
day.
how life has been. But putting my career on hold, I feel like is probably was the biggest sacrifice for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mean specifically like that 6 years especially?
Yeah, I mean, I always wanted to open a private practice. That was my goal when I set out as a marriage and family therapist. That's probably the goal of most people when they enter into school.
Yeah.
Um,
Is it still a goal?
well, for me, it's just it's hard trying to figure out how to. That's the other part of it. In Oklahoma, when I was practicing in California, it was a little better because I was very much so under the radar there. But my husband being in the public eye, it kind of, and Oklahoma being a little bit of a small town, it made it challenging to practice and maintain the therapeutic relationships that I needed to foster with my clients
Yeah.
when they knew or found out who my husband was.
Yeah.
So much of therapy is based on your relationship with the person because if you don't trust somebody,
Right.
or it doesn't feel pure, then it's hard to connect and really reach those aha moments. And
Yeah. Yeah.
um, so that has been challenging.
Right. That's a barrier I didn't even think about. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so I don't remember what your question was, but I hope I
You got that
answered
mom
it.
brain?
My brain all day, every day.
Yes, I was wondering if that's still a goal and you know, and I really asked because obviously we need as many black therapists as we can in this world.
Right,
And so maybe it just looks different, you know, maybe it's creating a practice that you're not necessarily the main therapist, but you put together a beautiful team of
right.
people who look like
Okay, so
you.
I'm back on track. Like you said, it's I've been trying to figure out and racking my brain on how to make it work now today.
Yeah.
Maybe years from down the line, it's not going to be an issue for me. But
Right.
today, in order
Right.
to make the impact and have the impact and be of service the way that I would like to,
Yeah.
I'm having to exercise or look into different avenues and ways to do that. I've thought about workshops, online workshops, and
Mm.
different things like that.
Yep.
Um, and I have actually thought about what you just mentioned, having a practice and maybe overseeing and not necessarily seeing clients.
Yeah.
So that's something to really consider. But that's why I have my mental health platform, which
Mhm.
I'm hoping to be able to get the message and get the information out that I would like to share as a way to kind of fill that void for me until I
Yeah.
figure out the next steps.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I think that there's nothing that we need more right now than platforms, social pages, access to mental health. And
Yes,
the more of it is, the more of it there is, the more of it that comes from people who look like us. I think the more our community will be, it will just be the norm.
that's where normal is good.
Yeah.
Let's normalize
Yes.
mental health. That's when, because it is normal, and that is
Yeah.
something that is normal for everybody. We
Yeah.
all have our mental health to take care of,
Yeah.
each of us individually, and so that is definitely a norm.
Couple of questions for you. What does vulnerability look like for you?
For me, I think vulnerability looks like asking for help
Yeah.
when I need help. Like a lot of women, especially a lot of women in communities of color, Black
Mhm.
women, we're so used to wearing so many hats and juggling and taking care of everybody, and getting to ourselves last and putting ourselves to the side to make sure that we're nurturing all of the other relationships that we have. So I feel like in order to be my best, and in order to really put forth the energy and the intention that things in my life need, I have to be able to accept and ask for help when I need it, and not think that I can just do everything. And that is being vulnerable, because I'm naturally not a person who likes to ask for help.
Yeah, I feel that for sure. So, what does joy look like for you?
Joy looks like every single morning waking up and going to see my kids.
Girl, I know. I relate.
It just doesn't change. It's the happiest time is getting up and seeing them for the first time for the day.
Yeah. Honestly, mine certainly made the last year a lot easier. There was
Hmm.
nothing, there was a lot of pain, there was a lot of challenge, there was a lot of fear, but their innocent faces and their big smiles just made it like I feel so grateful to have them as a distraction, for lack of a better word, but also to have them as my focus.
Absolutely.
What do you wish you spent more time doing 5 years ago?
I wish I spent more time doing what I wanted to do and not
Mm-hmm.
caring what anybody else thought about it
Mm-hmm.
or felt about it. Just because it's so different when you have children that become the focus.
Yeah, yeah. 5 years ago, you did not have those.
Yes, 5 years ago, I was childless. And I feel like I could have been so productive and progressive in my personal journey, as far as my career goes,
Mm-hmm.
prior to having my kids. And that would have also helped, probably with a lot of resentment that I've
Mm.
had over the years for sacrificing and so much, and kind of not feeling the best about where I am and in relation to where I want to be.
You made me think of something. You have a degree in psychology, so hopefully we can unpack this together. We all talk about the word resentment, and I can 100% see how you or anyone in your environment where you're making a lot of decisions, you're making a lot of moves for your partner, there can be resentment because you're making sacrifices for, that you want to do. How much of resentment is fair, I guess, is a question. Like, to your point, there are things that you could you could have done differently to prioritize yourself,
Hmm.
but you only see that in hindsight. The word resentment, I'm really just trying to unpack the word resentment because I've never thought about it this way. But if we look at it one way, we could just take it back. We can take back whatever we're resentful for.
Hmm.
But in the other way, we're usually just mad at the other person, right? Like, I'm trying to,
I think that resentment doesn't always only have to be towards other people.
yeah,
A lot of times we might make decisions that we know are not best for us, and we might hold ourselves hostage to those decisions, and have
yeah,
and foster negative feelings and guilt, and maybe self-blame and self-doubt,
yeah,
and it can manifest in that way. I think that you're absolutely right. Everybody makes choices,
Yeah.
and it's weird to make a choice and then resent someone else for it
Yeah.
later.
Yeah. It's not weird. I
But
think it's common.
I think, no, I
It's
was going to
just
say I think it's a natural emotion, unfortunately, that we all kind of, well, not everyone, but it comes
many of
about
us. Yeah.
naturally. That's why it takes time, and you learn and you experience these things. You have to kind of go through them in order to grow.
Yeah.
And I think that on the other side of it, once you have been through it and experienced it and learned from it, you become you come out on a better person on the other side of it.
Yeah.
And you learn things about yourself that help you to navigate that moving forward, where you don't necessarily have to deal with those same types of emotions and feelings again. For me, that was prioritizing myself
Yeah.
and doing what I wanted to do and finding a way to make that happen no matter what the situation seemed like. If it
Yeah.
seemed like it wasn't okay or seemed like it wasn't the right time.
And maybe too, what I'm learning is that when I feel resentment, I should always look at what can I be doing differently, whether it's toward a
Absolutely.
person or a thing or whatever, but it's like, okay, now I feel it. How can I take back what I want to get from this instead of
Right.
continuing to sacrifice myself?
Right. And it's like, it's basically you want to be in control. Everybody's in
Yeah.
control of their own life, whether you believe it or not.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of mindset. And once you understand, and once you kind of like, when you go through that experience and you're feeling resentment, once you learn how to, like you said, think your way out of it and
Yeah.
figure out what it is that you need to do to make yourself okay in this situation, like what makes you comfortable being here. You have to be here. What do I need to do to make this okay?
Right.
Then that is definitely going to help you to not get those feelings of
Yeah.
resentment, or to work through them.
Yeah. The feeling of resentment is a wake up call. It's like, okay, what do I need to change? Ooh, thank you. um, so what failure have you learned the most from?
I mean,
Or even what loss? Because I know that word failure can be tricky.
I mean, yes. Okay, so I can answer the question. It's just hard because I look at everything as a learning experience,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'm out here to learn and grow. So I know going into things that I'm not necessarily the best or the smartest or going to make all the right choices from the jump. I do
Yeah.
not like taking big risks. So
Yeah.
I try to steer away from that. But as far as business goes, I think
Hmm.
that I have definitely taken some losses and had to learn how to do things in a better way. I think that, but I feel like it's all a part of the process, though. It's part of growth
Yeah.
and how
Yeah.
you get better. And I would say, is probably one of my biggest failures is just making mistakes and not, I don't know, maybe doing things too quickly, taking on too much.
Yeah. But then
Like, I don't
learning,
know.
and that's what
But
matters.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I think you just learn from it, and you correct it. You find solutions, which I'm very solution oriented, and you make the best of it.
Hmm.
And my biggest fear of a failure would be to like traumatize my kids in any way. I feel like as long as I'm not doing that, I'm doing okay in the world, and that's the most that I can ask for.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. What is like one lesson you hope to teach your kids or one thing you hope to instill in them?
I just want them to know that, or I would like to instill in them the most confidence and self love that I can, because I think that's what happened to me
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
with my family. And I feel like if someone believes in themselves, this sounds so cliche.
Not
But
to me,
really,
child.
if someone believes in themselves and they have confidence in
Yeah.
themselves, they're going to have confidence in their choices. They're going to
Yeah.
be confident about asking for what they want and not settling for what they don't need. They're going to be confident and reassured that they are everything and
Yeah.
they are deserving, and that will take you, I feel like, everywhere you need to go in life.
So either that's every parent everywhere or we're twinning again because that is exactly what I say. And especially, I think raising Black children, I just want them to know that they are perfect exactly as they are. I want them to look at anybody crazy who thinks otherwise. Like confidence and
Absolutely.
self love is exactly what I hope to give them every single day. So I don't know what it is, but we are on the same page yet
We're
again.
basically the same person.
Well, I really could do this all day, but I realized that you have to go raise children and run businesses and be a wife, and I should probably do the same. I am taking away so much from this for sure. I mean, it's just a lot of lessons from letting go of whatever I thought was supposed to be normal parenting, normal wifing, normal, family household behavior. And certainly, I would say one of the biggest lessons from this conversation is, teaching myself that resentment is a checkpoint for realizing that I need to do something differently. I need to take back
Mhm.
me and what's important to
Yes.
me. So before we close, can you tell folks how to follow you and anything that we should be looking out for besides all the amazing kiddo products at Minnybrook and our mental
Yes.
wellness fix at ninawestbrook.com?
I mean, this is okay. Well, you can follow me on Instagram at Nina Westbrook. This is so weird to me. But no, really go check out my website, nina-westbrook.com, just because I feel like there's a lot of great perspectives and information and tips. I'm
Yeah.
all about giving tips for anyone who's looking to cultivate mental health or
Mhm.
cultivate their physical wellness. That's what I would say is ninawestbrook.com.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much for joining me today. Yeah, go do your mama thing and your
Yes, thank you
entrepreneur
for
thing.
having me.
Thanks for joining me on My New BFF. Don't forget to give us a review so others can join us on this journey. And please don't forget to subscribe so you're the first to find out who will be my new BFF.